Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny is coming out this weekend. And nobody could care less. But what we do care about is the masterpiece, Raiders of the Lost Ark. This is Last Page. Welcome and thank you for joining us, everybody, on issue 13 of Last Page. I am RemingtonCKing, joined today by RemingtonCKing and across the seas of the internet, Jason Cedars, and special guest, Zach Glenn, who is one of the hosts of the amazing podcast, Idiot Talk, a Radiohead podcast. Thank you, everyone, for joining today. I could not care less. I truly could not. About the new Indiana Jones movie coming out. It got panned at Cannes Film Festival, and from the trailer and from what I saw from the one episode of Fleabag that I saw, I could not, there is just nothing in me that wants to see this movie, but I was very excited to go back and watch Raiders again, because it is considered one of the greatest action adventure movies of all time. I think we all are probably on the same page when it comes to that. Let's kick it off. Jason, you said you hadn't seen the movie in a long time. How did you feel watching Raiders of the Lost Ark, the 1981 adventure?
It felt like getting back into that old cozy chair or that warm blanket that you owned as a kid, or some nostalgic, piece of like this room or the smell or something that, brought me so back to my childhood. Like, this movie is so good and it holds up so well. And it's just such a perfect movie, just scene for scene for scene. Just every one of the scenes is just so well done. So I had a great time rewatching it, and recently rewatched Temple of Doom like a week or two ago, and just the differences between the two too, like the tones and stuff like that, I kind of totally forgot. So I had an amazing time rewatching this movie, and it was a lot of fun. So I'm actually really excited to talk about it and relive all the past memories that we all had watching this movie,
Yes, Barat Zach.
Oh man, I mean, similar to Jason, it's so much fun. It's I think it's the Indiana Jones film I've seen the least, which is very strange and unconventional. So I always do find newer things to kind of, pick up on in the minutia. No, there's never anything like, oh my God, Nazis are in this film. But
There were Nazis, dude.
but I do think that there's always new things that stand out to me, just because I guess the film I would compare it to, as far as like one that I've seen so many times, is A New Hope. Star with Star Wars in the title of A New Hope, because as we talked about before the mics were on, Indiana Jones might not actually be in the title, but is it Star Wars: A New Hope? Maverick, can you help me out there?
It is only because now there's 19 movies, and
sure, okay.
Star Wars, it's just super.
Yeah, in today's woke culture, of course, you got to have right. So no. So I think it is kind of the one that is just, I've seen, and in the case of A New Hope, it's kind of the sleepiest. In the case of Raiders, I wouldn't describe it that way at all. But there's always new things, and I'm sure we'll touch on it. I don't want to hug the mic too much, but just such a great movie. I love it so much.
Agreed around the block here. Holds up so well. Fun movie. Indiana Jones movies just ooze fun. They're great films. There's great cinematography. The acting is solid for the most part. There's a lot of great aspects to the movie. But I think the feeling that I get when I watch these movies is just hand over fist fun. It's so fun. The conversations are funny. The character interactions are really well done, and the dynamics and the pacing is great. 2-hour movie. Does not feel slow at any point. They do a really good job of like having meaningful story building elements, and then right into good long action scenes. So yeah, rewatching it for the first time in I think 10 years, give or take, long time. And I just watched National Treasure, so I'm kind of like back-to-back action adventure films here. Also a very fun movie that holds up pretty well, but not necessarily quite as. Actually, you know what? I will not say anything negative about National Treasure, but it is, very, very fun. I really enjoyed the rewatch, and I am excited to talk more about some details.
That would be a great crossover movie.
Yeah.
If we ever got, in a previous life, if we ever got Indiana Jones trying to take all of the National Treasure and put it into a museum while constantly one step ahead or behind of Nicolas Cage, that would have been a great movie.
Or just those two characters interacting with each other, Nicolas Cage and Harrison Ford's character.
But there would be it'd be so good if there was a reveal scene where Nicolas Cage's character is like, well, my real name is blah blah blah, but people call me Mutt for short. And we realize it's Mutt grown up.
God.
Oh my God. But this movie is just a joy to watch. Everything, the Steven Spielberg at the peak of his powers, the true peak of his powers. Every shot from the opening sequence where you don't see Harrison Ford's face, you just see the jacket behind the head, the hat. You're just building this. Who is this guy? Who is this? Who is this man that clearly he looks like he knows what he's doing, even though we haven't even seen his face yet. It's such a wonderful, the thing I appreciate, especially when we get to the opening sequence and Indiana Jones is slowly trying to get to this idol that is hidden in this jungle. The little shots that just ratchet up the intensity, the cuts between him and Alfred Molina's character. And it's so well done. And to bring it all to the next level, every John Williams moment in this is beautiful. The sound effects are so great. I love the fact that his gun just sounds like a cannon. Oh, yeah. It's just the most overblown gun sound effect. It's so impactful. When he shoots it, you're like, oh my God.
It's got a reverse silencer on it. Reverse silencer does the opposite.
Some gun nut out there is like, oh, that's actually called an amplifier.
I took the muffler off of this gun.
He's got a muffler.
Yeah. He took the muffler off. Maverick, did you know that there's kind of a bait and switch? Oh, I'm sorry, Mav. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to lead you into talking about that opening sequence of him going through the maze and all that.
Yeah, but let's do it again because I cut you off.
Zach, talk to me about the opening introduction of Indiana Jones, and as we see him figuring out, trying to piece together some clues in order to find this idol that's out there in these temples.
I love it. I mean, I think it's always hard for me to choose what the strongest opening of any Indiana Jones film is, because I think they all have really strong openings and they're all really different. But this one's really cool, as you talked about, the slow introduction. I love the bait and switch they do of the guy who gets the arrows in the back that we eventually find, because he is wearing a very similar attire to Indy. And because Indy doesn't come out of shadow until, I don't know, I didn't time it, but maybe 3-4 minutes into the film, there's a couple shots of that person's body, especially when he's reaching for his gun before Indy grabs it, where, it's really cool. It's a nice little camera trick. You get the wonderful juxtaposition of Alfred Molina being scared and rushing things, even though right away we see in this kind of Daniel Craig era James Bond way that he's not perfect, right? Not every single move he makes is precise and perfect. He does kind of have to bluff his way through. That's something they really amp up as the quadrilogy goes on. It's really, really strong. And the thing that I was thinking last night that is just like a really cool feeling is like watching movies from this era of Spielberg and just in general, but movies with top tier special effects, is I love the feeling of thinking about how did they do this? Not just being amazed by how good something looks like in a Transformers movie or in a I don't know, in a Star Wars movie. These obviously aren't great films, but I'm just talking about how aesthetically, like visually busy or realistic they can look. But it's not that the imperfections aren't there, but from the stone rolling, from all these just set pieces, I love to think about how did they do this, and obviously there's a lot of materials to find out how they did it now. But that just never, even once I've seen those moments never cease to kind of astound me. And then Remington, you were mentioning the cinematography. I believe it's Douglas Slocum who did the cinematography, I think, on the first two films, if not all three of them. And I love the like contrast in lighting from obtaining the idol, the way the idol's obviously lit, but then it's daylight, and it's really, really cool. Obviously John Williams, there's, I can't touch on every single element of production, but just with the lighting, I do think this movie is kind of lit in 3 chapters, which is really interesting. It's pretty bright in the beginning, and then it goes into something different. But we're just talking about the intro right now, which I really, really love. Like I said, I'm undecided which one I think is the strongest intro, but such a great way to meet the character.
Intro is phenomenal. On it, I just love the mysterious element that they have for Indy at the very beginning of the movie. In just a short couple minutes, it really does kind of build it up into this very, as I say, without before anybody even says any real words. And he whips out his whip. He just, something that I felt and I feel very early on in this movie is it just, and maybe this is just looking at it through more of a modern lens, is that Indiana just feels like a superhero. And he's not necessarily written that way because he's a little, I guess he is in a certain degree, but it's just the way that he has like a couple weapons. He has a couple tools and he has the unique whip, right? It's not just, it'd be one thing if he just had a gun, it wouldn't be nearly
like Batman. It's like a utility belt, but he could get hurt.
Yeah, kind of. And so, but he has this like special, this one special, very handy weapon that somehow he can use as a grappling hook. Don't ignore how that works. But I love that. And then he goes back before, like without getting ahead, he goes back to his mild-mannered teacher job. It's almost like a dual identity.
It's almost like 2 sides of the same coin.
Oh, I set you up. I alley-ooped without even trying. I alley-ooped that. Oh my God.
It is very Bruce Wayne in that way though, because it's like he does have this like powerful day job, and like we see he's not impervious to getting hurt. Right. I don't know. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, that opening scene is awesome all the way through. There's a recurring theme of escaping death and or being kidnapped that just recurs over every 20 minutes of this film, and we get it right as soon as. So you have the fantastic the grabbing of the idol. And Alfred Molina, double crossing him, which obviously he's like, no, you got to throw me the idol before I can let you across.
Well, it's so heavy, it would have sank him into the abyss.
Okay.
And there's no time.
There's no time.
Which, by the way, the poster of the new Indiana Jones movie, Indiana Jones is holding his whip like this, and it literally looks like when Alfred Molina drops it. It literally, I'm going to put it here because it literally looks like adios, senor. It looks like, I'm like, why did they just take Alfred Molina's face? But Jason, the opening sequence, your takeaways.
Yeah, I can't say enough good things about that opening sequence. Yeah, I actually, when the movie started, I paused it because of how good the Raiders of the Lost Ark actual font and everything holds up so well. And I think it's the first scene is Indy, which you don't know, it's him walking on the ridge of just some jungle, and the sun behind him, and all you're seeing is dark silhouettes, and then Raiders, kind of pops up, and it's so well done. And that's what, 81, 82, and it's just how well, the Spielberg and cinematography, what'd you say, buddies, Douglas, had such a great, beginning of this, and probably, yeah, I'm going to say it, the best opening of a movie, not just Indiana Jones, which is the best of those, the best, opening, Super Troopers is up there pretty high as far as
Super Troopers has a great intro.
I mean, movies that just set the tone within the first 5-10 minutes. It's just Raiders does it so well. And
I love that.
Not even doing it so well, but creating some of the most classic scenes of all time that now transition to every movie, every genre. I mean, the boulder rolling scene and then the idol kind of switching scene of the weight, it's how many other movies had used those two situations, and it's, oh, go ahead, Remy.
No, I'll just, I have to give a shout out to my boy Weird Al Yankovic for recreating the ball rolling or the stone rolling scene in UHF.
Yes.
What?
UHF.
One of the greatest, most underrated comedy films of all time.
You told me about this movie. I have not seen it.
Oh, Jason, it is so funny. It is so special. I remember when he's Conan the Librarian in that same montage, Remington. These books are a little late. Sorry.
Anyway, sorry.
No. It's all, it proves my point where how many other movies have used that scene, of like, and it's such a, I don't know about rights things and stuff like that, but I know Star Wars was like, everyone can use our products, no matter what. You can put it on a lunchbox or anything. I think Raiders or Indiana Jones almost had that level of everyone can just market our stuff or use our likeness and stuff, and we don't care because it's just great advertisement for us. But I can't say enough good things about the opening scene. But I love the Alfred Molina, like how his character is there in the beginning, where he's this bumbling kind of like just mule carrying it, and then he's turning into the bad guy, that double crosses him and stuff, and then meets his ultimate fate, all within these 10-minute thing of it. Just and of course the funny one-liners that come out of that one is just great. And then I also, what's so great about that opening scene is being introduced to such a great bad guy for the movie, Belloc. I mean, I love that name too, Belloc. It's like and how Indy even says it, it's like Belloc, and then just him, how he commands the tribe of pygmy people or whatever.
And that shot of him with the idol laughing is really cool. The way all the
laughing
natives
that goes through the forest is
really cool. It's very menacing.
I remember doing this as a kid with like my brothers and stuff, or being like, he just does that, that little noise to make all the people like attack him, like just how great. And then just of course him running to the plane, start the engines, just how he's screaming, running, and the music, and John Williams is just perfectly scores that entire scene. But what I'm also getting out of this rewatch is how well John Williams doesn't score some of the scenes. There's silence in some of the parts, and we'll get to that later, but like there is some silent parts even in this intro, and then how the music rolls, and then just you get such a great introduction to who Indiana Jones is as far as the dual lives and stuff, where he kind of going to the school, but then even him being afraid of snakes, that's like, I think the first time. No, Temple of Doom, you get his snake fear, I guess, in that, but yeah, you get it more in your face with it being right in his lap, so yeah, you get such a great introduction to the character, the movie, and just sets a great tone.
Well, I also love too, as he's running down the hill, start the engine. That's sort of what I was talking about, because you get glimpses of these really bright sort of spotlights, right? Like on the idol, he says like stay out of the light when he's traveling to Alfred Molina's character. But so sorry, pardon me. But I love the contrast though, as he's running over that ridge and he's yelling start the engine, and it's all very brightly lit in a very natural looking way. Who knows? It's always hard to tell, but. And his I forget the name of the character. There are characters I forget in this film, which is very uncharacteristic for an indie film. But the person piloting who has the snake. Yes, thank you, Matt. But I love how he uses his whip to kind of swing into the water. But it's very much a damn, I thought that was closer type moment, right? He's not even close to the plane, and it is this nice setup of like, yes, this guy is cooler than anything I ever could be, but he's not perfect, which I just love. I love I don't know. It's very, very nice touch, right? Is that maybe our first moment of sort of like, oh, this character's not going to do everything. He's not going to land every jump.
It would be, that is a great observation, because that does kind of set up that, he gets into fisticuffs but he does stumble and fall and get punched and all that stuff. But before that, it is the bag, holding the bag, and then thinking that he's got the right amount, and then he's like sure of himself, and as soon as it does, everything collapses. So there is that I think precedes that. But Belloc is so great.
Yes.
So wonderful. The way they set up his character just being that he's like, you can just tell because he's French. He already just immediately sounds more sophisticated, and that he's always just one step ahead of Indiana Jones. That actor Freeman, I forget his first name,
Robert
Freeman. But when he went in to do Paul Freeman, when he went in to do the audition, I think it was Spielberg or Lucas that he was talking to, and he's like, "Oh yeah, can you play this French guy?" And he's like, "Oh, we must," and he's like, "I've never done a French accent." He just bullshitted it, and then they're like, "Oh, that's great, yeah." And he's like, "Okay," he's a British man. So it's funny that like he pulled it off, because I mean, again, he's wonderful. Every scene he's in, he's never one of those characters we talked about in a recent episode of Last Page. Doesn't throw a punch, doesn't do anything violent, but he simply is a guy that his will gets carried out wherever he goes because of his influence. And he's a wonderful counter to Indy.
Mm-hmm. And it's just such the other. Oh, sorry.
Oh, well, I was just gonna say, are you comparing him to maybe?
But we were talking. That's who Stryker from X2.
That's what I was just gonna say. Yeah, to William Stryker in X2. Yeah, very much in charge, very much in control. Whether the physical prowess is there, but I'm sorry, Jason. Please go ahead.
It just in comparison to the other kind of bad guy, which you get in the introduced in the next scene. The full blacked Nazi'd out guy with the glasses. I can't remember his
Todd.
Yes.
Todd. That's his name.
Just another one. He doesn't throw a punch, but he's also just this very different.
What a beautiful
frog of a man.
Oh yeah. I mean, his death is perfect for him. I feel like too. Just the melt,
Mm-hmm.
But we're jumping way far ahead here. Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
So you mentioned earlier once we get to him being a school teacher. And that's another part that Zach mentioned of the flaws of him. He does make him look very clumsy when he's like trying to grab all the maps and papers and Brody, Marcus Brody is like, hey, these guys want to meet with you. And he's like, what do they want with me? And he's kind of like just walking very awkwardly. And yeah, you get more of a human. This guy is not James Bond, even though he's the American James Bond, but just like an American James Bond, kind of the blunt instrument. Although they refer to James Bond as a blunt instrument at some points. But anyway.
Mission Impossible, but yes.
And also just how thrown off his game he is by the girl with the "I love you."
Not
Seems-
segue, but how many students did Indiana Jones sleep with?
Zero.
It's a university. It's a university.
Yeah, it's showing how off his game he is. That this girl is
a university.
Yeah, it's a university.
Yeah, but like I guess that'd be okay by 1935 standards. What? But like Indiana Jones.
I don't get the feeling that he has, though. Not because I need to see Indy in some moral and ethical light, but I really feel like what they're going for, and they don't go for this as much in the other films, is a sense of aloofness. Right? Like we all know he's very handsome. He's very charming when he wants to be. We see that, but we do, even with Marion, we see that he's a little aloof. So I get the sense that he is maybe even a little aloof to how interested his students are. I mean, it's so difficult to know in a film that it's not that it's lacking any depth, but I don't know if that's where you were coming from with the Zero Maverick, but that's sort of the impression I get.
He's really like uncomfortable by the situation. It's not something he's like,
yes,
hey, I'll see you later. It's like, it's actually throwing him off.
But I'm glad to know that he will be doing his office hours on Thursday. We see that by the time we
not Wednesday, but Thursday.
We get to Last Crusade. Yeah, his office hours are, but Mav, you wanted to say something about the next scene though, I felt like.
Do you know the name? Remy, I don't think you would know. Jason, I don't think you would know. Zach might know. Do you know the name of Porkins from Star Wars: A New Hope?
Yes.
Do you know his character's name in this?
Major Eaton. because he plays Lieutenant Eckhart in Batman 1989.
Right.
His other name credit, Knox. Why'd you broadcast it? So yes, of course I know.
He's a friend of he was a friend of George Lucas, and so that's why he's in
he also
Hope,
plays Porkins.
New Hope is Porkins, and he's in this movie as Major Eaton. Like, man, my guy got done dirty. But anyway, the movies obviously are based on the serials, the action adventure series that were like 10 minutes long that would play in movie theaters, that would always leave on a cliffhanger. And so that is what is the whole movie set up to be, a series of these action moments that kind of go throughout the movie. But this is kind of the one scene that sets up the exposition of the movie, which I, as a kid that went to Sunday school, that line just is one of the most hilarious lines that I ever came across.
Okay, two things stood out to me last night of this whole scene where I was like, okay, the first thing that stood out to me, is what you just, I think, gestured at, Maverick, is I was like, these movies are violent, especially the first two. But really the first three. They're very, very violent, right? And that's okay, and that's what I love about them. Part of me wonders if, not necessarily my family, but like in a lot of the families at large that we kind of went to church with, if these were okay and promoted because it is centered around a skeptic who's not wholly dismissive of biblical history, but is somewhat of a skeptic and sees the power of God. I'm like, I wonder if the like Alfred Molina's character getting, when he discovers him dead, like yes, does it look real? Not necessarily, but is it violent? Yes. Like there's a lot of movie moments in the first two in particular that I find that I was deeply terrified by, and part of me does wonder if these were just like auto okay to watch compared to a lot of other things that were scrutinized because of the biblical parallels. What do you think?
That's a great observation, and I totally agree. 100% agree. That's the only a movie that violent I would not have been able to have watched at the age I did, because it does have the biblical themes that I know for a fact. My dad being a very religious man,
Sure.
loves the movie as a dad does, but also the religious aspects, and they do a great job of representing the Ark of the Covenant and giving it the mythos that the Bible has, and then also adding to it, all of the what's the room called, the Well of Souls. But yeah, that sequence of the biblical introduction, and we kind of get that.
Very cool, especially again, being Sunday school kids, just being like, "That's me. I went to Sunday school."
Right. Oh yeah, you mean when he says, "Did you ever go to Sunday school?"
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Flips the chalkboard and starts drawing.
Yeah, the chalkboard and stuff. Oh yeah, I love they do. I love how they incorporate like 80-ish, 70-80% biblically accurate data.
Yeah.
And then like 20-30% of just like, let's add in some stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like Terrace. I don't know if Terrace not Terrace. That's the Old Republic that I was just playing.
Tennis.
That doesn't sound right either.
Oh, the city.
TENNACE.
Really?
Yes.
Tennis.
Yeah.
Tennis, the Lost City. Yeah, Tennis.
Okay. So
Quite clean.
yes, by a sandstorm that lasted a whole year.
Yeah.
I love the things that they added, and I think it's just a perfect. Just like we got a magical artifact, and Indiana is like Brody is concerned. Indiana is not. I don't believe in all that hocus pocus stuff. And yeah, it's just it's as far as expositions goes, not boring, just enough music to add some tension. And I love that he has a giant book. He has a giant book of just archaeology, I guess. And he's just like he has like unwrap it. It's like clunk. There it is. And it has a cool picture. Awesome setup. And doesn't need it's not, I don't think it's a super long scene, but it does just enough to being like, all right, we've got the basis of the plot. We've got the basis of all the characters now, and we are ready to go.
Kind of like a horror movie. You mentioned the music. It's silent, and then the John Williams music plays right when he opens it, and it goes to the lightning coming out, and Brody says,
"Good God." Yes, that's just what the Hebrews thought.
But it's like very horror, like a horror movie would be like, oh, here's the book that shows like the demon, and you get that kind of, and you're just mentally picturing the wrath.
Like the Necronomicon.
Yeah.
I'll say your damn words. I gotcha.
Just how like good that like picture looks, on that. It's like gold leafed, and it's like, I think it's the Ark on a hill, and there's like has that iconograph, I think is the style of that, and it's that John Williams like you're kind of singing, because you're right, it sets the tone so well for like what the movie's going to be. But I love that scene. I love how quick, short, it tells you so much about the movie, and blaming the Nazis for everything. I love how that's that era where it's like they're easy bad guys, it's like the Nazis, you're gonna get it.
As opposed to now when people are like unequivocal. Like I love watching the Indiana Jones movies, how just unequivocally evil the Nazis are. It's like, there's no debate to this. Okay, these are the bad guys. I'm like, oh, man, who would have thought 40 years later I'd be like grateful that a movie is unequivocal of its hatred of Nazis.
It's
I do want to go back just one step. I pulled out
literally.
I pulled out this wonderful book I have called When Egypt Ruled the East. And Remy was wondering the same thing, because I was like, Tanis, I don't remember. So I thought that they were, you guys can cut this if you want, but I thought that they were using Tanis as a stand-in for Amarna. because Amarna was a lost religious city under Akhenaten the Third, who was the father of Akhenaten, who was the father of Tutankhamun the Third, or King Tut. But I was delighted to remember that it was in fact a real city. So it is interesting which things they choose to kind of anchor in a geographic reality or not. But yeah, no, I thought that was really neat.
So but I assume there is no basis to the Ark being in Tennis.
I don't think they've discovered the Ark of the Covenant today yet.
No, it's
so
supposed-
you know,
I meant as in there's no historical.
No, I don't believe so.
Okay.
No, I don't think so. No.
There's there's rumors, or not rumors. There's theories that it is kept in this African temple, and that the people that watch over it, like the priests that watch over, cannot leave the grounds.
Right.
I don't know, obviously I don't know if it's true, but I love that like story of like it's in this temple, and the guy that watches over does not leave. He's literally like in the Last Crusade. He's the last
Crusade.
Yeah. Well, they also thought it could be on Oak Island too. Like they thought it could be like one of the things there, but yeah.
One thing that I have a hard time swallowing, though, kind of about this whole angle of the Nazis, though, is, and I'm not sure if they say it in that scene or if it's later in the movie, but they talk about how the Ark will give any army invulnerability. Is that the power?
Yeah, that's in that scene.
Yeah, so is that scene, but how does that transition? The vessel that's holding the 10 Commandments now somehow gives powers to entire armies of invincibility. I'm not seeing that connection. I'm not seeing that leap right there. So
I think it's sort of like the guy in Guardians when he's describing Jason, you and I both love him. He's from Usual Suspects, and
Benicio del Toro.
I love Benicio del Toro's character when he kind of is describing, he's like, entire people would be mowed down like wheatgrass. Like that's kind of the montage that I sort of picture, is like the Nazis would somehow harness it into a staff. And but I mean, I think it kind of just goes with the idea though that the Nazis, they were 29 Nobel Prize winners living left Germany in the early not the early 1930s, around 1936, pre 1939. Because they were harnessing the power of nuclear fusion and things like that. So I think that's sort of what it's gesturing at in a very fantastical way.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know. I don't know though. But I wanted to ask this though. This is a weird thing I always have, because Maverick and I have discussed off mic that Last Crusade is at least the one that we've both seen the most, I think. And that Marcus Brody is the Marcus Brody in my mind, where I'm just like, this is Marcus Brody. He's silly, but in the best way. I love the Marcus Brody of Last Crusade. I always have a moment in this Indy film where I'm like, is Marcus Brody going to double cross Indy? Even though I know it's not going to happen. He doesn't seem at all as trustworthy. He seems like he kind of just has like, he could have his own agenda or not be, just in that first chunk. Like, when Indy gets back to his house and he's like, why aren't you so excited for me? And he's kind of like looking off long in the distance, and I don't know. I mean,
there's that moment when, in hindsight, where Marcus, he's like, oh, and Indiana Jones says, and the museum gets the Ark, and he's like, oh, yes. And then he kind of, he looks off.
Yeah.
So there's that moment that in hindsight, it's like, I think Marcus, but again, he's written differently because he's much more affable and a likable kind of clumsy fellow in the third movie. But you are right, Zach, that in that first movie, like, you could have seen what happens in Last Crusade with Donovan. You could have seen that with Marcus, but I like that Marcus.
Yes. I feel like Donovan is like a split off because, and I mean, there's always little things like that once you learn about the behind the scenes, which I have not in this film of the script. But I just feel like they were leaving the door open, and I love the direction they went with his character. He speaks a dozen languages. Wrong movie. But I'm glad you caught that, or, at least agree with that a little bit, because I'm always caught off guard by it a little bit.
But then, like, the very next scene, though, I feel like they're buddies, in his room. He's packing and they're talking and they're all excited and stuff like that. So any of those feelings, I definitely felt a little bit of that too. And that one is just wiped away by the next one, where it's like, okay, he obviously has his back. But yeah, maybe it was something left open for next movies to potential backstabbing.
We are introduced to maybe like my favorite like female co-lead romantic interest character. I love Mariam so much. She is her introduction of having a shot off with some large, very alcoholic looking dude in Nepal, and her literally drinking him under the table, and then Indiana Jones's shadow comes in. Great introduction. You get just this spitfire of a woman who lives in fucking Nepal. So that kind of tells you everything you need to know. And then they have a history that's better left not talked about. But yeah, Mariam is so amazing and such a perfect representation of like a tough woman that lives out on her own without being OP. Love her character.
She's great. She has that perfect band. Like even with these 74 times that she gets kidnapped in this movie, she never really feels like a damsel in distress because she's constantly conniving, and like you can see the way she hides the knife, and the way she when she puts on the dress, she's kind of playing up to Belloc. She does all these things where it's just like she's never just like, oh my God, I need to be saved. She's always very much like capable of saving herself. Or at the very least doing a very adequate job of trying. And so even with all the kidnap attempts and, as I say, and being in peril and all those things, as Indiana is too, though. So they kind of both are in peril quite a bit through this movie, obviously. And I think they do such a good job of making her tough and funny and very charismatic. And I do think there's a timeline here where she gets with Belloc. When her and Belloc are interacting,
there's a little bit of a flirtation there.
Oh yeah, later you see that.
She makes a comment. It's just like, maybe at another time, or she just like one line that I'm like, I do think she's attracted to Belloc.
I don't know that she's attracted to him. I feel like it's like a story of just like this one time I got really, really drunk. Listen, I can't speak from these stories from experience. So I'm just guessing, but it's hard not to objectify every single person in this film. So if equality is what we're looking for, I think I could probably do that. Harrison looks great. I do want to say I think Harrison looks the best physically in Temple of Doom. Now that might be your least favorite film. I think that's the one where he looks the best, but
that's because he's got his shirt off in like the second.
Yeah. He's all got baby oil on.
Yes. Karen Allen is all the things, Remy. I think you just capped that off so wonderfully. She is so lovely. She's so cute. Like, I mean, it's just like, even just, I feel like the way she's shot, she just like, I'm not going to objectify everybody in this film, but I just love her. And she's so fantastic.
This is a bonkable show. We have gone on record that we objectify both men and women on this show in the most respectful way possible, while also giving them their credence as being human beings, but also admiring the very beautiful people on the silver screen.
Very tasteful.
Yeah. She's just so electric. And I don't have much to add on what Remy said, because I think like just in terms of the journey of her character, it's fantastic. But I was thinking like when they first meet, and it kind of reminds me of like how in comedy things like work in threes or whatever, how in Curse of the Black Pearl, how it's like, don't think I deserve that one. That one I deserved, when he gets slapped by the sex workers or whatever. It reminds me very much inspired of Marion, where she's just kind of like, Indiana Jones. And you're just like, oh, how's this going to go? And then she's like, no, it's not good to see you, buddy. It's not. I loved it so much.
I can't say enough positive things about this scene as well too, because it's so well done. Another absolutely classic, and another scene of like, where were you when you saw this the first time? But we got to back it up just one more scene though. It's the traveling in Indiana Jones. It's the plane that goes across the map, and it has the little dotted line of where he goes. Like, I love that shit. Like, as a kid, like it was so well done of like where the movie was going, and his great transition, and has the plane kind of like the B-roll footage or on top of the map kind of going across, and it was just such a classic. And I love that how anywhere you're traveling in the Indiana Jones movies, they kind of
leaving its red chemtrails as planes do.
Exactly. But yeah, no, just the vodka shot scene too. It's like, it's so good, and it just sets who she is so well. But I mean, I paused it and started counting the shot glasses. I mean, it's close to like 20. And I couldn't, there's a couple there, 20 shots of vodka each. I mean, and of course she's just like that one, and she about falls asleep on her hand, after that shot, and then flips it up, and Buddy, how he takes his shot and smiles. And then just slowly.
They lead into that so much, like the dude with the arrows in his back, who you're like, oh, this guy's okay. Or this guy, the way people just pass the fuck out in this film, I love so much.
And then it's like, she's acting, somewhat drunk after that, and then totally sober, like in 5 minutes, like that. Like talking to Indy, it's like, you just downed an entire bottle of vodka. You have to be like stumbling around here. But
wait, is it vodka? It's a brownish golden liquid,
right?
Right.
Oh, yeah. I just assumed it was
white.
I think the cup,
it's clear.
Yeah. It's clear, and I think the cups are just kind of tainted.
Okay, got it. Cool. I would clear that up.
At that establishment, they don't necessarily have the most best cleaning regulations.
Sure.
Alcohol just burned off any bacteria or stuff on there. But yeah, you get this whole sort of past relationship thing, and then her talking about the pendant, and the fact that she's actually been wearing it this whole time, and it's this massive pendant. Like who's the rapper who wears the clock?
No, not Waka Flocka.
It's show for a little while.
God damn it! I'm not Waka Flocka. It's.
We'll throw it up on top right here.
No, I know who this is. It's going to drive me crazy.
For a second, but I got that feeling like she's taking this big, like, 80s rapper chain off of her neck and then throwing it on top of her. It's like, and then the bar clears out, which clears out very quickly all of a sudden after that. Like, that's another part of that scene. I'm like, everyone just left the bar immediately after that challenge. Like, okay, we're off to the snow. And then the 4 bad guys walk in, which is such a great, like, the doors open and it's like clearly the bad Nazi with the guys behind him. You remember the name of the rapper?
Flava Flav.
Flava Flav. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. I saw it on your face. I
was like, I'm not gonna be able to think about anything else until I finally think of his name.
But that fight scene, I mean, almost one of the best in the movie. I mean, the later one where they're running around in Cairo is good, but this one.
No, but I love that fight scene, Jason, because of like the barrels of alcohol.
Yes,
it's such a fun set piece.
Yes, and so it's silent, and there's so much set things going on. They shoots a hole through the barrel, and of course Marion.
Yes, I love that so much.
But then the other one where Indy's being choked, and he's leaning over the bar, and he's like, whiskey. He's asking
I love it.
And it's silent, and she's kind of looking, grabs it, and just over the back of his head, just.
Do you think that's where they got it in Hot Rod of whiskey?
What way?
No, but I love that, Jason, with the whiskey on the. It's such a like. How fun could they make this fight? With all the components, and it's just sorry, you keep going. I love it so much. It's such a good fight scene.
This is superhero Indy also too. This is Indy versus 4 guys with just his whip and his gun, and is able to take them out almost flawlessly. A little help with Marion, but it just shows you like how capable these two are. And then of course her whole bar burning down, and the guy grabbing it, and searing it into his hand, and him running out and putting his hand in the snow. Like I think about that one a lot. But and then
ow!
Yeah, how he's
that is not how it goes. He goes, I know.
No, I know. That's how I did it all.
It is. It's that high pitched, that squeal. But,
like, Jesus, dude, aren't you a high-ranking Nazi? Like,
you got it down. Yeah. But then, of course, the lines in the movie, come from that when her bar is burning down and she's got the pendant and she's like, "I'm your goddamn partner."
Okay,
right in the camera's frame like this. It's just great.
Yeah.
Can I interject a funny Walker Zach story real quick, please?
Who is the other? Walker is the other.
Oh, yes.
Of Idiot Talk, a Radiohead podcast, available wherever you get your podcast.
Thank you.
$10.99, Zach.
What's that?
I said that product placement is $10.99.
Oh yes, no, totally. I'll make sure to mail you all or fax you all my tax documents end of year. I do want to say, so co-host of the show my brother and I do is actually we are currently undergoing a name change for season 2 because we're covering a different artist, but we'll just call it Idiot Talk Radiohead Podcast for now. But Walker and I, we did not grow up in a home that you know, and this was a good decision by our parents that emphasized cursing when quoting movies. So a couple staples that we had was in the movie Speed. There's a scene where Keanu Reeves is talking to, who's the villain in Speed, Maverick?
Dennis Hopper.
Dennis Hopper. He says, "You're crazy. You're fucking crazy." But Walker would go, "You're crazy. You're fucking crazy." There's that one. And for Miriam's part, there's just this really distinct memory I have of Walker and I playing Indiana Jones, where she goes, "I'm your gosh dang partner." Because we weren't allowed to say goddamn. It's so fun. It's just really, really funny to think about. Because every time she says it, I'm still like, oh, I don't know if she should be saying that.
Triggers.
No, 100%. It's not to dwell in the past, but my parents, God bless their souls, installed a black box into our television set.
Oh, I love
that
those.
would mute the television. It would read the subtitles and it would mute the television when anyone would curse. And so an entire line of dialogue would get completely cut out. And so when that scene, "Well, yeah, Indy," and then it just goes silence until the scene's over. And I was like, I don't even know what she said.
Wow, I didn't know that was possible.
Are they partners?
Sadly, that was possible. But anyway, Don't want to dwell on that. We go to Cairo, the wonderful, lovable, just John Rhys Davies. I mean, if there's ever a man that I want to hug,
I am the emblem of the sea. Him dancing around singing that song, I will always associate with him.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sallah. Before Muhammad Salah, the king of Egypt, there was Sallah and his many children. Just a lovable, we don't need him to be a turncoat at some point. He's just a lovable friend of Indy's, because Indy's made friends all over the planet. It's very opposite Han Solo. Han Solo goes around and people don't seem to like him. He owes them money. Yeah. Whereas Indiana Jones goes to places, and outside of Marion, his love interest, people like him. He has friends, where he works. He has friends in other countries, and that carries on into the other movies. And just love Sallah.
Very well connected. He's just got people everywhere. He's like, oh yeah, I know a guy. That's Indiana. It's just like, oh yeah, I know a guy.
I know an 8-year-old that drives a car.
John Rhys Davies, a very underappreciated actor, underutilized. I wish he was in more well-known films other than this and Princess Diaries too.
And Lord of the Rings.
That was a joke. Yes, I mean, my favorite of the Lord of the Rings characters, Gimli. He's your favorite? My favorite, absolutely my favorite.
Oh, don't character shame.
No, I like that. I like it. It's cool. It's original.
That was a very disingenuous. I like that.
I think Sallah is so funny and it just very sneakily adequate at handling the Nazis and being in and part and just kind
of great schmoozer.
Very great. Yeah, I'll get you water. You want some water? I'll get you some water. Like that scene when he's just like he gets caught with the rope and somehow in 5 minutes he's already escaping with the Nazi flag to get Indy out of the world. Like just super capable in everything that he does, and has
bad dates are there.
Yeah, it saves Indy from getting poisoned. Saves Indy actually a bunch of times. He saves Indy from the Well of Souls, from getting poisoned, and from the bar getting shot by a zillion Arabian men.
Kids, technically.
Yeah, I mean it's his kids though. His
better than U.S. Marines.
Yes. So I love John Rhys Davies' character. I think he's fantastic in this movie. Sallah is so good, and my favorite part. He is my favorite part of all of the Cairo scenes. And there's a lot of great scenes there that they have in Cairo, but that is my favorite for sure.
You hit the nail on the head, but we also got introduced another great character in the movie, the monkey.
The evil monkey.
That's when we finally get introduced to that double-crossing bastard monkey, that's working for the shady eye patch dude in the corner, that we always see just like non-verbally communicating with the monkey, where they have this like
Are they two sides of the same coin, Jason?
I
I like to think because that monkey died, because I'm such such an animal lover, that is the monkey that he went on to become the monkey in Pirates of the Caribbean. Who's undead.
Oh, he's a descendant. He's a descendant.
Sure.
From,
okay. All right.
yeah,
Okay. That's good enough for
devious
me.
monkeys. Are you talking about the actual monkey that went on to live a happy life for Disney?
Yeah. Well, I mean, in universe, at least that's my hope.
Comes from a long line of devious monkeys.
I know.
Marion gets kidnapped, and just a wonderful, wonderful Steven Spielberg moment of Indiana Jones starts to get into a fisticuff with these guys, trying to get Marion out of there. Marion gets thrown into the back of a car, pulling away, and she hides in a basket that then gets taken. And then Indy runs up to the camera, and it's his eyes, and he's looking around, and then the reveal, he just runs up and starts grabbing all identical baskets.
I know.
A wonderful movie thing of all of these baskets are the same. Everyone in Egypt just goes to the same basket weaver, and no one can tell. Can you imagine going to the laundry and like everyone's just got the same like 20 different it's like, I don't know which one's mine. Why didn't I label it?
There was a sale that morning, and they all had it was a flash sale.
Oh no, is it Friday? It's basket day.
But I mean, that's another like classic meme scene. I mean, they reuse that scene in multiple movies of just the basket.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, but that's such a great scene.
And of course, the iconic sword fight that never was, where you get a guy that looks like Sean Connery from Wind and the Lion. This most likely white dude that is playing a Muslim in black, or I don't know if he's Muslim, but an Arabian fellow or Egyptian fellow in black. And he has a sword, and he's doing this sword movement, and Indy just pulls out the gun and just shoots him. Another great comedic, hilarious.
He's Mexican, by the way, but yes.
Ford.
I love that, and it's just, I mean, the lore around that story has propelled it so much. But it really is fun to watch it with or without that knowledge. Just the way he lazily grabs his pistol, a trope that has been redone by so many non-Indiana Jones movies so many times, but it just never ceases to amaze me. It's so great.
It was very fun watching that scene with Tony for the first time. She had never seen Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
fun.
And yeah, her reaction, like, you don't say anything about the scene, and her reaction, she just starts busting up laughing. and when that happens, and it is such an organic, it's one of those beautiful moments that you couldn't have scripted it better. It's better than what was actually scripted. I'm sure a great sword fight would have been cool, but it's just one of those things that catches you off guard. And you're just like, oh yeah, he has a fucking gun. Right. It just works so perfectly, and it was really sick. I was waiting to see her reaction for that scene, and when it happens, it's like, oh, nailed it.
Yeah.
The filming too. I mean, that's clearly in like some, Cairo maybe, or some, city that's very similar, but it's so refreshing to see like actual, like real sets, things like that, especially with just the green screens and stuff that we're getting in a lot of movies. And you can tell so many of the extras are just real people in the background. They said they just like stand there, it's like clearly just some, workers, that are on the edge of this, scene, just really enjoying the movie playing out just as much as almost as we are. Like you look at some of the extras in the back, but it just feels so dirty, dusty, sunny, hot, like just you feel like you're in that city during that whole scene too, like you're part of the chase.
That guy, that's a great observation of the authentic look of people. The guy that pulls out the knife on Marion, like he's like missing teeth, and like it's just like, where do they find that guy?
It's just, hey, you come over here. You're being in the scene now. Some extra.
So Marion gets captured, or she gets put into the back of a truck that blows up, and Indy with the gun, the cannon of a gun, kind of like if Megatron turned into like a hand cannon, kind of from the old Transformers, and he turns into a hand cannon. That's kind of what Megatron would sound like. Boom, and he shoots, and the truck blows up, and then Indy gets rescued by the kids. Another Belloc, just kind of always being one step ahead of Indy. And finally getting to the I don't know exactly how far away, because Belloc tells Marion that when they're in the middle of the desert that it's 3 weeks by foot in every direction. I'd like, how long does it take? It doesn't seem like it takes them that long to get to the boat, but I don't know. I don't know what the timeline's like.
Or exactly where they are. I
It's
mean,
a
they
good question.
Yeah. I mean, they do drive for a while when he's driving back to Cairo. Like when he has the arc and he's driving back to Cairo after the big chase scene. It seems like it's not because he like pulls in like they have the long chase scene that you watch. They from the plane all the way back to where he gets the boat or gets it and then parks it really quickly in like the big open garage and everybody covers it up. It seems like that all happens kind of quick. Now, we could add in some time, some like blanks of time from when the chase scene ends to when he pulls into Cairo. Maybe that's another few hours, or a couple hours. I don't know, but.
I mean, there is definitely parts in this movie where you have to kind of suspend the disbelief of the traveling and the movement.
I'd say so.
Remember, he swims up to the sub and he holds on to the sub the entire time they're going to the island.
We're assuming that sub does not submerge at any point.
He's holding on to a sub as it's just like
why not?
Island, like how did he just shows up with a rocket launcher on top of a mountain? It's like, wait a second, how did you get there? So there's so many points in that movie where it's like, okay, there's
no truth in this art.
Yeah, involved somehow.
The whole sequence of Indy going to the Well of Souls, figuring out the location, and then the snake pit. The shot of him with the sunset behind him and the wind blowing and he's just standing there. I mean,
that's some great cinematography. Are you talking about where there's the crew kind of digging? Oh, I love that shot so much. It's so beautiful.
I have miles. It's not the years. It's the miles. And India's standing there where all these nice gentlemen are digging for him, and he's just standing there being like.
That feels like a shot from Apocalypse Now or something.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Like so good.
No, sorry, Remy. I just because we jumped over him actually down in the map room. Just that map room, that was one of the more impactful scenes in my memory too. Realizing that Belloc has got the wrong height on the stick.
Yeah.
And, him down in there and him finding the little hole and putting the stick there and the medallion and then watching the sun hit it, and it's like it's got to be CG or something to that point where it's just this perfect laser going into it, and the music starts to get the increase, and that's the tension almost builds, and it's just like this happiness of him finding the exact spot, and as the music hits a climax, like that is like great cinematography to me.
Yeah,
you're right. The next scene is beautiful, but that previous one beautiful in just a very different way. But love those two scenes.
I just really the scene. I love that because they have that shot when they're first working at sunset, and then they have a similar shot again when Belloc and the Nazis walk out and they see them working up on the hill and the sunrise. Mm-hmm. It's just I just like that they have the sunset and the sunrise kind of similar shot, two sides of the same coin. I don't know.
We're gonna have a lot of coins at the end of this episode. We'll be able to get an extra life in Mario with all these coins. The snake pit, just so iconic. It's the opening of it, and why does the floor move, and the mystery, the intrigue, the flash of lightning. Great. I don't know how many times they shot that reaction, but that was a beautiful.
Sorry.
Yeah.
We all knew exactly who you were quoting though in that one. That was a good that was a good scream.
Zach, the snake pit and the figuring out the great mechanisms of this flames running out, and talk to me about the snake pit.
Oh, I don't have much to add. I mean, it's all so satisfying. They're all such satisfying set pieces that I think set up Indy's character, even though it's towards the latter part of the film, but for later things in future films, right, of what we know he's afraid of and what we've seen. I don't have a ton to add on this part. I know since we're trying to keep an eye on time, I would say the part kind of when they open the arc is where I would like to input the most. So thank you for calling on me, but I don't have much more else to add there.
My favorite part of that is remember that we're getting switched between two scenes at that point. This is also the same time that Marion and Belloc are in the tent, having their like dinner together, while Indy and what's the character's name? His sidekick guy.
Sallah.
Well, him and Sallah are down in the snake pit, where it's like this almost like juxtaposition of, what
Yes.
the two characters are going through,
Uh-huh.
like they're having this sort of ordeal, but both dealing it in separate different ways. And it's
I grew up on this stuff. It's my family label. Which I still, actually, I'm glad you highlighted this scene, Jason, because I still don't quite get who wins that scene. Because he grew up on it. It's his family label. So is he saying he's like
the
immune
drinking
to the effects of...
Well,
But
I mean,
what is-
it's we're like Marion winning the vodka shot contest. I think
Right.
is like what is setting us up that she can drink this guy under the table. But then he's also saying like, no, I grew up on this. You ain't drinking me under the table.
But does he say? Does he's saying though, like, I know what you're trying to do, or is he just laughing about it?
Yeah.
I've always interpreted that scene that, like you said, he grew up on it. So yeah, she cannot drink him under the table. And so I think he's just enjoying the good time. They're both laughing.
Okay.
They're both enjoying the time. But yeah, her plan is to get out of there and try to like get him drunk.
Right.
But he's just like, but he's never like takes it too seriously.
Stabby with him.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because that was
laughing is just
that's another favorite scene in the entire movie is her whipping out the knife and then both of them just laughing about it, just staring at each other's stuff. But I love that, it's the changing of the dress, and just how that tent scene plays off where you're, like we talked about earlier, like, did they really hook up or something like that? Because it's almost chemistry between the two because both of them kind of know what each other is doing. They understand the situation that both of them are in, and they're actually just having fun with it. Because when the Nazis show up, the guy in the black coat, it's almost like he walked in on something. They're like almost like embarrassed, and stuff. And then
I'm so glad you brought this up.
and then she jumps into his lap, while Buddy whips out the weapon that you think it is, and it's really just a hanger to hang his coat on, which is such a great like little thing where that bad guy he's such a good bad guy, and another one that's just oozes, that the I don't know the best word for him. I mean, he's slimy kind of individual, but it's him never raising a fist. Another one of those type of villains where it's just the presence that he commands is enough to scare everyone around him. But
the ultimate buzzkill. Like this guy walks in the room and you're like, oh, this guy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So coming into the bar and room, everyone's
Not
good.
Toad.
But it's just back and forth, to them in the snake pit and then them in that room, and it's just such a fun back and forth kind of between the two of them. But and then him of course then taking her back to the snake pit and then tossing her in, because that kind of all happens now during all this point. So that tent obviously was kind of close to that dig, but there's a couple really good lines too throughout there where we're throwing Marion in, and I think it's Indy's kind of laughing like, you son of a bitch. And I can't remember what it is that he's laughing about or something like that, but it's like,
I know, perhaps someday you'll be worth something.
Yeah, something like that. And then as the door, like they're sealing the door, Marion's screaming, no, and it just like cuts off, because we're
definitely a George Lucas idea.
Yes, and that's a good point. I wanted to bring that up earlier, but you do get so much George Lucas Star Wars kind of feels to a lot of the scenes, because he wrote this immediately after writing A New Hope. I think like that was the next project he worked on, or maybe even at the same time, or maybe like he had some Indiana Jones stuff written while.
Well, I always had an idea for an adventure serial that I wanted to do. It's because Star Wars, I thought it was going to be a big turkey, so I brought it to Steven. So George brought it to me, and I said, "What is this?" And so we had this character I call Indiana Jones. I thought it'd be nice if the woman character would go Indiana Jones.
That is a great George Lucas, man.
Was it?
You should have gone into that. You should have done George just this entire podcast, entire show.
Wow! Oh my gosh, I feel so
I
flattered.
thought you were supposed to be Canadian this whole show. That's right. We got away from that one. So
well,
anyway, we need to speed it up. So my favorite
escape from the snake pit. Yeah,
my favorite scene is the giant bald Nazi with a mustache.
Stone Cold
Steve Austin. I mean, dude,
on the tarmac. Yeah.
Of all the heavies in movies, that like the big guy in a room.
He's in all three of them too.
Oh,
yeah,
hit me with
he's the
this
guy
Easter
that gets
egg.
crushed by the roller, right?
Is he
Yes.
the guy? He's the same
Yes.
big dude?
Yes.
Who's
But
he
he
in
has
the
a different
third one?
character, obviously.
Yeah,
Each
yeah,
one.
he does just
Actually?
go back.
Yeah,
This is-
he's in all three of them.
Oh, very
Who's
cool.
he in the third movie?
I can't remember.
You're lying. He's not
Fake
in the third
news?
movie. Fake
He
news.
is. Oh,
All right, we'll put this on.
Disinformation.
Disinformation. Let me tell you, I've seen a lot of guys. Okay, wait, we're not.
Hey, we're going great.
All right, so but the big Nazi dude that shows up with just takes his shirt off and he's just like, "Do I hear a fight?" And he's just like
comes out of there
immediately
like-
just, "I'm not gonna try to shoot this guy. Like I heard a fight and I'm here to get into a fight."
It's like a baseball game when they're clearing the bench or something like that. You know,
Oh,
it's like,
yeah.
It's like, oh, so he rushes the mound. Oh, I'm on
No,
this.
this is in hockey they call him the goon.
Yeah.
The guy that just you have him to get into fights.
He's not concerned with letting the higher ups know about, like, hey, there's something really bad going on. He's just like, yes, I get to go fight somebody.
Or that there's gasoline spilling everywhere. All over the
Unconcerned. Unconcerned.
about that, but nope, I'm all fisticuffs time. Yeah,
He's sort of like
Playing,
Rictus
rotating.
in New Mad Max Fury Road or something, where he's just like, my role is to just dominate, and I don't care what happens to my body in the process. Yeah, he's awesome.
Yeah, the everything from the plane rotating with the propellers. There's gasoline going. Marion is getting in and to the gun pit, and just everything about that is just a masterpiece action sequence. Another violent for a PG a PG rated movie is just the propeller hitting the Nazi and just the blood splattering all over. I love that sequence so much.
Something I took away from this watch that I definitely didn't notice beforehand, but Indy is not good at fighting. Like in that scene, he's stomping on his toes. He does like and he bites him, and he's like running away and doing like he's very like, I wouldn't go as far as like Jackie Chan using his surroundings for him, but he knows that he can't just stand there and fight this guy. He's got to have some angle.
I love
to
that.
this fight, you know.
Gets dropped with a jab. The first punch, he just jabs him and he just falls.
Legs buckle.
Yeah.
He's like almost surprised. He's like, "Oh shit, man!" That's
so good. So just another in the long line of great action scenes in this movie. I do love. Yeah, I love the his death. The splattering is just like, so it kind of catches you off guard as you see the propeller, and you're just like, oh my god, and then he just But it's the other like extra violent-y moment in the movie. This one, and the when Miriam is at her bar and she blows the dude's head right from behind. She shoots the dude's head from behind, like he's about to shoot Indy, and you see it just go right splatter through his forehead, and it's beautifully gory. And that's how I feel about these two scenes. It's just like this scene as well. It's so fun and funny. But yeah, beautifully gory.
So climax of the movie, Indy goes on this chase, great chase of discarding Nazis out of the truck, taking over the truck, getting into a fight with the driver. Both of them having a moment where they like chuckle at each other. And then quickly go back to trying to kill each other. Yeah. And then getting dragged. I mean, it's really just an incredible work of stunts and camera angles and everything in that scene of Indy just really grinding himself into the literal earth to try to recover the Ark and get away to this boat with a dope captain. I wish the captain was in the movie more, because that's just like, Indiana Jones, I've heard a lot about you. And he just starts laughing. And I'm like, this is the guy I want like Indy to be swapping like shots and stories with.
He's like, "Do you fuck my sister? You did." It's okay. I'm happy about it.
Great character. But I want to talk a little bit more about the chase scene, because Indy does start that on a white horse. He's coming out of like a tent, and a white horse, chasing down this line. And once again, the one-man army, like this is 4 or 5 cars full of Nazis, and it's one dude against them all. And and he actually gets shot in that scene. And I feel like that's the first time that Indy like takes some damage throughout the movie.
Yeah, did you get it in the arm? Yeah.
Yeah. And then Buddy uses that to his advantage, and punches him, in that fight scene. But I will always remember as a kid, him on the front grill of that and pulling it in the bars, like pulling it down. He's like,
Yes, dude, I love that so much.
a good tension, because then the other guy in the car gets put into the same position where he's now pulling on that, but he's not
So
doing just as good as Indy was. It just shows you that how, even though he's clumsy, how he gets himself, he's better in those situations than any average, dude.
He's a great improviser, isn't he?
But it's such a great fight scene. It's like how the arc is, where he just takes out this entire line of Nazi cars, and he's the one driving, the van now, and then runs fucking Belloc and all them off the road, and then is now just going away with the arc behind him, and it's such a great, but and and then they get onto the boat, and then this is the captain. Yeah, you're absolutely right. That captain is such an awesome dude, and had almost the love triangle that you kind of feel like between Marion, Indy, and him, because it has this like kind of, I don't know, feel like, because he uses her, she's mine or something later towards it but then Belloc is kind of
fetch a handsome price. No, smells good.
Well, it's really a love square, because we have Indy, Marion to the captain, now to Belloc.
Yeah, they're all like kind of fighting over her, and kind of tugging her around.
She's got a lot of suitors.
But yeah, that boat scene is another one of my favorite ones, and it's quick, and it also just another very part of this whole movie. We start to get to a little more fantastical, a little more like mythology. Like, this is where you start to see the arc a little bit more of like what it is like. So it's in the box on the boat, and is this where the Nazi symbol like burns itself off of the box, and it has that music, and then the rat kind of like squeaking its way kind of across the floor and everything, where it has just such a dark implications of what this arc is, because this is positive biblical kind of like thing that they're searching for, but then it has this super like menacing side you're starting to see, where it's like, okay, in the wrong hands, this is a very like powerful weapon, like this nuclear time that the movie was in. Maybe they're like hinting on that. So yeah, that boat scene is so well done. And then like Indy hiding the whole time too, like in that porthole where the guy's smoking, and he just throws a cigarette right at Indy, and he has to kind of like dodge it and stuff like that. Like there's such like really classic scenes on that boat.
The triumph of the John Williams score, as he's like, where is he? I see him there, and it shoots up, and he salutes them, and they salute back. I love that. I love that so much. It's just this big wide angle of Harrison Ford or whoever running on top of the sub. So Indiana Jones is worn down completely, and they do a great job of showing him he's not just invulnerable. He can't just once he takes over the truck, he's holding his arm. When he's getting onto the boat, he's just like almost limping. Like Marion hits him in the chin, and he gives out this large scream, and then they cut back, and she's like, "Did you say something?" It's like, you could hear the scream from like a mile away. What are you talking about?
I think they blow the horn at the same time. And that's the I think that's why. I could be wrong, but I think that's why.
I still feel like the horn would not be so deafening.
Probably not.
Anyway. But yes, he puts on the Nazi uniform. He subdues the guy, hits him. The hat flies up, and he catches it. Goes to shoot his rocket launcher, and he's attempting to shoot the arc and everything, but that quickly does not happen. So then the final sequence is Marion and Indy are tied up. Zach has comments about this sequence.
Oh, there's a documentary I want to recommend on Disney Plus. I think it's 4 parts. It might be 5 parts, but it's called Light and Magic. And it is kind of an exploration of like Industrial Light and Magic, ILM, that was created for 1977 Star Wars. But they do chronicle as it goes on. They talk about how they did iconic special effects for many of Spielberg's films, and they spend, I would say, at least 30 minutes talking about how they created the ghosts that I think look fantastic. I mean, they definitely are a throwback to like an older era, as this movie is almost entirely. How they sort of reverse engineered the Nazis to like, it speaks to what I was talking about earlier, how it's like, I love to just think about as a kid and even now, how did they do that? Not I know how they did that, even though it looks so real. There's such a difference. So, I didn't take too many notes on that. I've watched that series so many times. I cannot recommend it enough. I feel like all three of you would love it for totally different reasons. It's so great. But yeah, just really wanted to highlight that. And it does go to, and I think Mav, last time you were so sweetly had me on the show, I did some throwaway line of like, is it an Indiana Jones thing? Like whether he does or does not take action within the plot would go the same. This is sort of the culmination of that, right? Where it's like the Nazis have the Ark, they open it, they're defeated. If you really think about it, Indiana Jones and Marion did not really have any effect on that happening or not happening, even though the outcome is still positive. But that's kind of my final thoughts. I just really wanted to take the time to recommend that Light and Magic documentary for people that are interested in the special effects and how they pulled a lot of this off. It's very, very, very cool. John Dykstra, anyway, I'm sorry, but yeah, so good. But were you all aware of kind of that? I wish I could say that I noticed it, but I didn't. People have been talking about it in screenwriting kind of tropes for years that Indiana Jones could be taken out the film. So those are kind of my final thoughts.
My problem with the theory of Indiana Jones is not important to this film. Indiana Jones is definitely not as important to the outcome of this movie the way he is in the Temple of Doom or Last Crusade. However, if you remove Indiana Jones, Marion gets killed or other things in the bar sequence. The Nazis recover the amulet, and they discover where the Ark is. They get the Ark. They do the procedure, and then they all get killed. But the Ark would still be there. The Nazis would know where it is, and they would be able to end up recovering it. So the Nazis would end up with the Ark if it was not for Indiana Jones, which is why I take issue with the idea he's not important. He's not as important as he is in the other movies, but he is important.
Yeah, I get that. That's a good point.
Would they have found it though because they were looking in the wrong place?
Yes.
No, because they're looking in the wrong place because they're going off of the handprint, but the handprint is only on the side.
They would have gone to
so
the right
if they had the amulet.
Okay,
yeah.
Gotcha.
But when they go back though, would the cycle just keep repeating, and would they just keep getting their faces melted?
It closes back.
Oh, right.
And I feel like once you go there and you see all the corpses.
No, it sucks the corpses
out.
Oh,
it sucks the corpses out. Okay, so maybe not. But
so it is kind of just repeated. It would have just
maybe it would have defeated the Nazis like all in of itself.
Yeah, Hitler would have been like, "I'm going down to see this for myself," and then he got sucked up and you'd have been dead forever. And
great,
makes a lot. Like I'm going down myself. Okay, the end.
So because
Indiana Jones actually is the villain of this impression.
Yeah, because Indiana Jones intervened, all the Nazis survived. If he wouldn't have, it would have
taken.
That's
what I'm saying. That's part of the trope. It's like
Marion would be dead, and no, I still think that eventually they would have sent enough people there, and it would have been this big weapon of like, what happens when people go there? And then it would have been like in Last Crusade where they send one guy at a time, and then the head gets killed off. Like it would be like that. Like ultimately, it's safe, guarded, or being researched by top men, thanks to Indiana Jones. A wonderful line from Major Eden. I love we have top men working on it right now. Mm-hmm. Top men. I just love that. Love it. But Remy, your thoughts on the final sequence of them tied up and the ghost and the reveal?
Sick moment as a young, at that point, religious child. It was very cool to watch the wrath of God just absolutely eviscerate a bunch of Nazis. Just, man, did these guys have it coming.
Fan service.
Yeah, very much so. The melting of the faces. It's funny. Todd, it's his worst acting moment of the whole movie, which I understand. It's hard. Just like the scream, the immobile screaming. You're screaming at this thing, keep screaming. He looks almost happy. The way that he's screaming, he doesn't quite look he kind of looks horrified, but his expression is so strange that he's just like, yes! He kind of looks like he's almost smiling. Like it's very funny. And then I love that it's kind of different. Like him and the Nazi general or officer.
That dude looks scared shitless. The general does.
They melt, but then Belloc explodes.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't. I don't know why they melt. I think God was extra offended that he was
culturally appropriating
all the robes on.
one to the arc. It's less damage the farther away from the arc you were.
There you go. Hey, I like that theory.
Shot in The Office when they talk about Agent Michael Scard when it shows them blow up Toby's head, and he's like, most
Toby.
expensive shot. Yeah, it reminds me of when Belloc dies so much.
It was the most expensive shot. That whole scene is fantastic, and then I love that it sucks up all the bodies and it just goes up to heaven and brings it back. It's just no trace, and then it's just pulled into a giant, endless warehouse of just like, never gonna touch this again. Until a really, really, really horrible sequel comes out later.
It doesn't exist. Oh my God! I mean the plastering or the plastering of the generic, case number, whatever, onto the side, getting wheeled. I mean, it's one of the greatest endings in any movie ever. You're in this adventure. They want to recover the ark. You think that it's going to, bring this whole closure of Indy's going to give it to the museum and it'll be this big thing. And no, the government gets a hold of it and kind of a great, the movies never get political. I mean, I guess, it's obviously good versus evil, good people versus Nazis. But the movie, generally isn't very political, but it does, the bureaucrats take over just like they would in real life and be like, no, we're taking this. And the ending of the movie and just the giant warehouse shot and it disappearing and the credits roll, just...
You know what it reminds me of? Like in Spielberg terms and in movies of the 70s and early 80s terms is... it reminds me the end of The Shining, how it's just kind of like you see the snowcat rolling off and then it's the end and you're like, oh shit, it's over. Well, I guess I don't really need anything else. It also reminds me of the end of Jurassic Park, where it's like you get the closure of them in the helicopter and you get Sam Neill's arc, but you don't get to see what's going to happen with Sam Neill and Laura Dern or Alan and Dr. Sadler. And you just see the pterodactyl flapping its wings and it's over. And you're like, I guess that is all I need, huh? I don't know. It's this very kind of like throwbacky thing. But like they're not the same, but like where it's just like they definitely feel like they could have gone a little longer. But then when you think about it, you're like, what more do I need though? Like I don't know what else I need. It's very tight and it's very 70s, 80s way to end a movie. Sorry, Remy, go ahead.
No, you're fine. I'm not trying to interrupt, but it just as opposed to watching National Geographic and National Treasure, just watching National Treasure and how it is like very neat go at the end of it, which is like, oh yeah, hey, the good guys won.
Someone's got to go to jail.
Someone's got to go to jail, man. Which I guess is just more of like a Jerry Bruckheimer sort of like way that he wanted to end it. He didn't, and not as much gay scenes that Jerry Bruckheimer would have wanted in his movie, but I do.
Commodore.
But I think it's okay that this movie ends in that sort of way, and I think it's you get to it and you're like, oh, that kind of sucks, but you still feel totally satisfied.
Yeah, Jerry Bruckheimer made it like Indy would have married the Commodore for sure.
Okay, we're getting out of bounds here. Jason, the ending of the movie.
I wrote down like perfect ending, and it does. And like we talked about in the very beginning, the pacing of this movie, and it never feels like too long. Every scene feels exactly how long it should be. I mean, it's almost a little jarring, the ending of it, because it is like there's so many good pacing throughout it, and then this just kind of ends like super quick. But never are you like, I wanted more. Well, I mean, of course, we as kids we wanted more of the Indiana Jones, but it felt like it wasn't a perfect nice bow, but it was so well done. But another thing that I just take away from this movie just constantly is just the music, the sound effects, the just how everything is so perfectly done. Like when the arc is starting to like get all like storm cloudy in the middle, sound of the like I think they're lights that all the Nazis have around there, and it's this high pitched like scream or like the belts on it or like screaming or something like that. I will forever have that noise in my head. It's almost like the and I think they even use it in this movie. It's the classic noise of a stormtrooper dying. Is that falling it off? I can't.
The Wilhelm scream.
Yes, and it's like they even use that in this movie one or two times. You get that scream, but then there's so many just classic noises during that arc sequence of just the music building, and then how the arc is the noise of it sucking everything back up into it.
Even when they start the plane in the very beginning, the plane that I heard total like Millennium Falcon starting noises. And
George
Jason,
Lucas
bro,
is
you
still-
got to watch that Light and Magic documentary. I feel like of the three of you, you're the most likely to actually check it out. And they talk all about that scene so
What the
much.
hell
I've
was
recommended it to you like 5 times over the last year. But it's so no, they talk all about that, and they talk all about like just kind of the ghosts and like the noises. And I'm really, really, really excited for you when you have the space and time and energy for all of you, hopefully,
Oh
to
yeah,
watch it.
yeah, no,
But,
definitely check
yeah.
it out. But it's and I also in that scene I get such Ghostbusters vibe, and that had
Yes.
to be the first Ghostbuster had to be same time, right? That was early 80s, late
1984.
Oh, 84, so a little while afterwards. But it's like the music when, ghosts start showing up in Ghostbusters is almost that feel when the ghosts start coming out, and how much of, like in Ghostbusters, it would be like the beautiful woman already all of a sudden changing into like a skeleton or a zombie kind of thing. Like you get that scene too in there where it's like he is standing at the ark. It's so beautiful. It's so amazing. He's talking, and then she like turns into it, and the music like gears up, and then it all gets so horror-y. And another very kind of strange part about this scene that I don't know how appropriate it is to kind of talk about it, but he's clearly dressed in a very Jewish kind of garb. This is a Jewish ceremony that he's about to perform on this ark. These are Nazis that they're all around. They would never let this happen. Like, what is this going on with this Jewish ceremony, happening with this very, the Nazis cannot be religious. I don't know how much I follow that.
Well, I think they're letting it go for the sake of getting access to it.
Yeah, but I feel
Is
like
my thinking, because I feel the same way you do. So
Hitler, like that is the movie. Like when Major Eden says Hitler's obsessed with the occult, he's a nut on the subject. Like that is true. Like Hitler was obsessed. with
big time.
Yeah, and so this is definitely like obviously they were no fans of the Jews. Spoiler alert, but it was like they wanted to get every kind of artifact, especially one that would have contained such power like the Ark in this movie.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I think it's more just kind of strange that these Nazis would almost be participating in some like almost Jewish ritual, is what it kind of felt like. So, but yeah, means to an end, they're going through all this, but that was another kind of takeaway I took from it as an adult. I didn't really think about that as a kid watching it, but I will forever hear that like sucking, whining, metallic gears kind of noise of the belts on that machine, in that scene. That's like what I always take away from it. And then it's a quick, great ending, and then the movie's done, and it's like you leave the theater like wanting the next iteration of Indiana Jones, like the next movie or whatnot to come out, because Young Indiana Jones the show didn't come out till after Last Crusade. Is that correct?
Yeah. 92, right?
Because I remember that too as a kid, being like, it wasn't enough, just these 3 movies, to watch. I always wanted more adventures on Indiana Jones, and I felt like it was like this one. And then
I always find myself thinking, I want more, and I know I shouldn't.
Love that finale and how it all ends, and just Indy and Marion just like closing their eyes and screaming and just
don't look at it, Marion.
There's so many great finishes to it, but love that movie. Such a great experience. Thank you for suggesting that as what our next our movie to watch, guys. That was fun.
I had absolutely no inkling of watching the new one, and Raiders, just easy to watch. Zach and I talked about this recently. Not my favorite Indiana Jones movie, but needless to say, this leads us to our ratings. And final thoughts. This movie is a 10 out of 10 for me. 10 out of 10. One of the 25 hollowed movies that are on my 10 out of 10 list. And it is part of the Madman Hall of Fame. Great honor to have. I've already said everything I need to say about this movie. Zach, talk to me give me a rating for the movie on whatever scale you want to give it.
Okay.
And your final thoughts.
Love the movie. Love it so much. I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10 just because of the other indie films that I love more than it. But I think in terms of like a genre piece and its originality, its acting, everything that we've talked about to death, it's a 10 out of 10. But in the scale of the indie films, it's like an 8.5 to a 9. But I couldn't find a bad thing to say about it. So, but it's only because of the ones that it's surpassed by that are 10 out of 10s. It feels wrong to give every one of the original 3 a 10 out of 10. So I'm going to go 9 out of 10. But Loved it. Always a fun revisit.
9 out of 10, very easily. The only thing that keeps it from being a 10 out of 10 for me is just the fact that there's so many points where the Nazis should have just killed Indiana and Marion, but just don't. They're just like, instead of shooting you right now, we're going to leave you in a pit that, hey, maybe you could and there's just these various points that they all should have died and they just don't for no good reason. So there's just like a little bit of plot armor in there that prevents it from being that clear cut 10. But it's otherwise, that's really my only thing that I can come up with. Otherwise, as fun as a movie could possibly be, looks great, sounds great, very well acted, fantastic.
10 out of 10, 2 thumbs up, 5 stars, every single rating system, the highest one I can give it, because I actually didn't expect that. Like, I was like, oh yeah, I'll watch this. It is such a fun movie, and it's such a good thing to just always go back and watch. And it's one of those classic things. If it's on TV, you're going to sit down and watch it, and that just says a lot. So yeah, so much fun watching this movie. Didn't find anything negative about it, even more positive things rewatching it this time. So yeah, 10 out of 10.
My only rebuttal to your criticism of the Nazis would have just shot them. If the Nazis were all that smart, they would have won the war. So a losing army would have done something stupid, like encased their enemy in a tomb and just left them there for like posterity's sake. And that's Last Page.